It's awesome to have Nathan Birch on the Inspiring Humans podcast today. Nathan Birch is an absolutely incredible human. He's the founder of Binvested, which is a group of companies dedicated to helping everyday Australians live life on their terms and become financially free. From humble beginnings, Nathan has 220 plus investment properties and has a $55 million plus net worth. Nathan, it's an absolute honour to have you on my podcast today, and I can't wait to take a deep dive into your life and your journey of making a difference to others.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks for having me on today. And apologies to everybody before we get started in case I swear, in case I say some stuff that's too weird, or whatever the case may be. But I just try and have fun with what I do and live life on my terms and encourage other people to as well. So, yeah.
And I really, that's one of the things I absolutely admire about you, Nathan, because you're just totally 100% yourself, which is, effortless to live in that way. And you speak your truth and a lot of the truth, in my opinion. And, I'd like to kind of start this podcast with the question to those listeners: how willing are you to, be open to a point of view that might be different than your own, or might be, different information than you heard before? Because I think that's how we grow and evolve as people. And whatever we listen to, kind of measure it, see how it feels, the gut feeling, and if something interests you, investigate more. So, Nathan, I know you have kind of lived outside the box and also have a very kind of maybe different understanding of what's going on in the economy to what the mainstream media shares with us. I'd love you to just kind of give us a bit of an insight into what are the times that we're living in? What does the economy look like globally and then locally?
Yeah, so I'd like to maybe I'll just give like a 2-minute intro just for those that haven't heard me beforehand or know.
Sure, perfect. Go for it.
So for me, I basically failed every grade from kindergarten to year 12, and I saw my dad die at the age of 62. I was 16 when he died, and I was 13, and I was like questioning the world. I'm like, why do I have to go get a job? Why do I have to do this? And I guess of recent years, it's been more solidified as to why and how and all that sort of stuff. But I wanted to, retire young because I didn't want to have to go and work 40 years of my life in a job that I hated. And I was happy to sacrifice 10, 12, 15 years of my life to work real hard, but I didn't want to have to be enslaved to this job and the system that we're, designed to be in. So I went out and I basically worked 2 full-time jobs to build a property portfolio. The numbers and stats that you had at the start, they're probably a little bit outdated now because we're in a world of inflation and spiraling out of control, central planning. But yeah, like my actual position, like it's grown. Like I bought my first property in Western Sydney. It was a sort of 3-bedroom house in a house commission area. People thought I was crazy buying a property at 18. I thought if I could buy 10 properties by the age of 30, so all bringing in $100 a week, that'd be $1,000 a week. As an 18-year-old buying my first one, I thought that was a cool plan. I thought it was impossible. I didn't realize that there was a way to get there. So I just hustled. I worked 2 full-time jobs, got a good relationship with debt, tried to work out how debt worked. And over the years, like I've grown and evolved and changed. And even the stuff that comes out of my mouth and the way that I see the world, if you look back 5, 10 years ago, is very, very different now. Looking at fundamentally the world that we live in, everyone feels like, oh, my house has gone up in value or, whatever. I'd love to sit there and say I'm the best property investor in the world, but I could be, I don't know, but I doubt it. Like I don't have an ego for that. But I understand how the money works, and it's the game that we're playing. It's the chessboard that we're playing on. And most people think the property's gone up in value, but it's not that the property's gone up in value. It's not that your cheeseburger that you bought at McDonald's has gone up in value, not that we want to go buy them. It's not that your car has gone up in value. It's that your money is buying you less. So if I had a glass of cordial, it's just water here. Some people think I got vodka because I talk weird stuff sometimes. But if we have a glass of cordial and we just keep pouring water into that cordial, eventually it's going to be diluted. And that's what's happening to our economy at the moment. And looking at all the debts that I have on my property portfolio, I've got over 230 properties now. I just bought 9 motels recently and become a motelier. And yeah, I look at all my properties, and 100 grand worth of debt going back 15 years ago was a big thing because interest rates were nearly 10%. That's 10 grand a year, $200 a week just for 100 grand debt. But there's literally people today getting sort of 2% interest rates on $1 million loans, and they're paying, 20 grand a year, $400 per week on $1 million debt, and they're tied to that mortgage for the next 30 years. So all my properties that I bought back in the day with 100 grand loan, I've still got 100 grand loan. It's cost me like a couple of grand a year to pay for that loan. I've got all this cash flow coming through, and I've been able to sort of play the real life monopoly. And I was able to quit my job at the age of 24, retire from the workforce. It was when I quit my job, 24, it was in the middle of the GFC. Most people were scared of their job and the employment. And I woke up on the Monday morning after I quit my job, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I started growing a beard. Used to be a face full of pimples. Now there's a lot of grey hair, so I shave it just to hide the grey hairs. Yeah, I just started making YouTube videos, and I got involved with the media. Started doing a lot of TV work and stuff like that. And then I started questioning whenever I spoke out about certain topics or things I'd see. I thought it was fascinating, and I was uncovering something, but I'd realize I'd get like this big hand behind the back of me, just slap me in the back of the head, because I'm speaking out from what the media doesn't want to hear. They love putting Nathan on the screen, being myself. I don't know why I'm talking third person, but they love putting me on the screen and going, this guy, this humble guy from Western Sydney, bought 10 properties, 20 properties, 30 properties, 40 properties, etc. And then people, I realize I'm just a product of the central banking system. They're just throwing this dumb, simple guy from Western Sydney up there, making me look as stupid as they can, and then going, oh, if he can do it, so can you, right? And everyone gets involved in the thing. So if I ask questions, step outside what they try and put in my mouth, try and qualify something or clarify it, even though they're putting words in my mouth, it doesn't end up too well. So going back about 4 to 5 years ago, I saw that we're heading into a depression. I called it the global financial depression, the GFD. I said we're going to see a depression of biblical proportions. I didn't expect it to end up like this, but there's lots of videos of what I was talking about previously unfolding, and how they actually unfolded is exactly to the book of what I saw happening. And it's all just down to money creation. And if we look back, like they go, Australia, we've got the best economy ever. We've had no recession for 30 years and all this sort of stuff. It's all become manipulated. So since 1971, the monetary system changed in the US. The US dollar became a complete fiat currency. It's backed by nothing really. They call it the petrodollar, where basically they took off the Bretton Woods system because the world went bankrupt. But it was actually 5 years beforehand that we saw the dollar change in Australia. So it went from the pounds and the pence to the dollars and the cents. And this happened in every country around the world. There was a debasement. They took gold and silver out of currency, and everyone got in this wash of cheap money. Started with good intentions from the planning. Then we started to see high levels of inflation going into the 80s. They had to try and calm that. So they put the interest rates up to like 20%. Everybody remembers 20% interest rates, with a fear that it would happen again. But in reality, they've just made people more and more enslaved. So some of the things that they've done to start off recessions back in the early 1990s, they opened up the doors to Australia. We need more tax slaves. We're all born into a system where we're basically tax slaves. We go to a 12-year indoctrination camp to become a good law-abiding citizen. They don't teach us how to live a healthy, sustainable, world to live. They don't help you with emotional intelligence or anything like that. They're just teaching us to go and fit into an industrial sort of revolution sort of system. Then in the 1990s, they couldn't get enough tax slaves to reproduce in the country, like i.e. us to breed. So they started immigration at a high level to bring immigration through. So then we've got more people working, more people paying taxes to pay off the debt that we're creating. Second thing that they did is that they used to have a one-income family. So like the mum would look after the kids, the dad would go to work or whatever. Now, what they did is they did childcare rebates and built a stimulus package based on the fact that they'd bump up childcare rebates and then have two people in the household working. Then as we went into the late 1990s, they dropped the interest rates down. Went into like a big bubble, which is the Y2K era, the tech bubble, whatnot, which they had to try and very carefully try and divert from a big recession from that. So what they did is they made interest rates very, very cheap. They gave away baby bonuses for us to reproduce more and encourage reproduction. What they did is that they built stimulus packages, being the first homeowner grants. So they were actually paying people to get a loan. They lowered lending standards and they made the cost of money cheaper. And then that lasted a few years until they tried a thing called quantitative tightening. So you either have quantitative easing or quantitative tightening. Quantitative easing means they're printing more money and making it easier to get access to money. Or quantitative tightening, they're tightening it up and it's taking liquidity out of the system. Lead up to 2008, they'll try and quantitative tightening to try and get the system back on track, which it failed in epic proportion. And then they had to go back to quantitative easing. So we saw interest rates go down, like in Australia, from 7.25% all the way down to 3%. That was 66% of the value of the cost of money dropped in basically 4 months. We saw them increase the first time in a grant from $7,000 to $14,000 and trying to stimulate the economy by throwing out checks. Kevin Rudd, the Prime Minister at the time, gave away $900 checks, and everyone thought we had the most wonderful economy. Everyone goes, oh, Labor, they do bad monetary policy. Liberal do good monetary policy. They're very conservative. I bought into that as a young person. I thought, oh, you know, Liberal for the rich and Labor for the hard worker, until I realized that I was politically atheist. If you've got two puppets, one on each hand, one, you know, I want to know who's underneath controlling that beast. And it brought us to around 2016, where they tried to stop and do tightening to the market. And I could see the levels of tightening that they were going to do was going to create a massive mess. The only way out of that was to print more money. And this time has been greater. Every time that the bubble gets bigger and they have to try and deflate it, there is more and more things thrown at the system to try and keep it afloat. So this time, don't worry about paying your mortgages. You can't go bankrupt. We changed the bankruptcy laws. People can't go bankrupt. We'll give you $800 a week or 40 grand a year or 750 or whatever it is, about 40 grand a year in settling for everybody. I actually called it as a universal basic income, which is now JobKeeper, the job seeker. They dropped interest rates to 0.1%, right? I can't even explain that. From 10% all the way down to 1%, that was 90% erosion. Now we've gone from 1.5% all the way down to 0.1%. It costs you nothing for money. You'd be paying more in tax than what it would be to pay the interest. So we've got all these stimulus packages, which is causing another fake boom, and people will feel richer, people will feel smarter. There'll be all these heroes out there saying, oh, I did this great deal, I bought a property, a car, a collector card, everything's going up. But it's really the money that's losing its value, and it's going to cause a new problem, and it's going to be a hyperinflationary depression. Since the first fiat currency that was put out there, the first fiat currency, which is a paper-based currency which could be printed, it's not backed by anything. The first one happened in 1024 AD, which is ironically is about 1,000 years ago in China. And then ever since then, there's been about 10,000 different fiat currencies, which have all died via a thing called a hyperinflation and gone to zero. And we're at a point where our currency, as of August 15th, 2021, it will be celebrating its 50-year anniversary of being in existence, the fake fiat currency. We're at the last days of that. And I'm excited because debt becomes irrelevant with inflation. We're seeing massive inflation. My debt is becoming cheaper. My cash flow is getting increased. My assets are getting increased. And you know, a lot of people think, I better save money. I better have those dollars in my bank account. But if you had $1,000 this time last year, it buys you a lot less than what it does this year. So in short, I've gone on a big rant there, Steph. So
thanks. That's super interesting and simply explained as well. Thanks, Amoon. You over answered my question. That's perfect background and how interesting. Well, so I'd love to just ask you, you mentioned like you were curious and kind of wanted to see who was behind the puppets. Who have you found to be behind the puppets of what you've just explained?
I don't know exactly who, but it always leads back to the central banks around the world. So what I mean by that is that This is the first time in history since 1970s, and it's gotten more and more obvious. You can see that each country has the same newspaper, right? Literally, the news is manipulated. So the news is like the propaganda outlet. Like, there's a lot of things to be learned, and this is very controversial. It's about to come out of my mouth. But from Nazi Germany back in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, there's a lot of things to be able to be learned, and it is happening and being replaying in the book. The media is complete propaganda. I don't trust a single thing out there. I see how they've packaged me up and put in the media. I see how, like, I've never had any bad things happen out there in the media, but I've had a lot of good things. But I see the ways that they try and manipulate, and how the big boss directs things to happen downstairs. That's a propaganda outlet for starters. Looking at each country's news around the world, doesn't matter if you're in Australia, if you're in the UK, if you're in New Zealand, if you're in Canada, if you're in the US, if you're in the Philippines. Am I allowed to swear, Steph? Or yeah, if you're in fucking Zimbabwe, right, or Kenya, right? I've literally seen the front page of the newspaper from Kenya going back like 5 years ago. House prices unaffordable. The Philippines, house prices unaffordable. Every country around the world, house price unaffordable. Then when the central banks turn the dial and try and go from quantitative easing to quantitative tightening, we start seeing house prices crashing in Australia, house prices crashing in UK, US, Canada, the Philippines, Kenya, everywhere. So I'm interested as to why these things are happening. So I just question it. It's like, okay, hang on a second, I can see that happening over here. But most outstandingly, like, if we look at the world that we live in today, we have got the biggest recession. What is fact, right? We've got the biggest recession in the world history. We've got, biggest job losses out there in the world history, the biggest tragedies and whatever in the world history. But don't be worried, everybody. We've got the highest house prices in history globally. We've got a property boom that's in every single country right now. We've got, all these things that are happening again. So the bubble's being reinflated. Question I ask is, if we've got the highest unemployment, how come we've got the highest house growth? How can we have the biggest boom in history? In the UK, I was talking to someone beforehand. How come in the UK, everybody's been under house arrest for a year? How come they've got the largest property boom happening now? Why? They can't even get out of their house to see a new place, right? It's all to do with the money that they're printing. So we've now got, in the period of probably 6 months of 2020, we had more currency printed. I use currency as a word because it's not money. More currency printed in the 6 months of 2020 than what there was in 200 years prior history, right? So when people feel like they're richer, a lot of people are poorer. They can't afford. And that's why we're going to see a hyperinflationary depression, because hyperinflations have occurred. And I encourage everybody to go and research what a hyperinflation is, how it occurs, which countries, which currencies. Hungary's had one, Germany's had one, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, every country's had a hyperinflation. It was actually, and this is of biblical proportions, and I don't want to go too spiritual on that front, but like the fall of the Roman Empire, I collect currency from around the money from around the world. It's been a big hobby of mine over the years. I've always wondered, why don't we use this coin still? I saw some here before, and I've got all different stuff. Like, things get shipped off to me. There's like bags of penny. I collect copper. I've got like over a ton of copper. I've got over a ton of silver. Got lots of gold. I don't have a ton of gold yet. I hope to before I die one day. But this thing here, this is like just an old 1966 50-cent piece, right? That had silver in it. Now your 50-cent piece doesn't have that. They sound different, right? They just sound different. And what happened in the fall of the Roman Empire is they put less and less silver, and they tried to water down their currency. And it always dies with the end of an era or an age or civilization. And we're at that point now where our currency is dead. It's been in palliative care for over a decade, and we need a new currency. And I believe we're going to a digital, socialist, totalitarian, communist, social credit scheme, which people will be judged on how they act in this digital world. And if you don't have money, you can't operate. So it's important to take control of your personal liberty and freedom to ensure that you've got protection on that front. So I know it might be a bit deep, and I'm not a depressing guy.
No, that's awesome. And my next question is, how do you help people to become financially free and independent in a system that you've just explained?
Well, everybody's running a different race in their life, right? But some people are young, some people are old, some people have got kids, some people don't have kids, some people are married, single, traveling, whatever. So everybody's life priorities, everybody's positions is different. And I came from a blue collar family. There wasn't any wealth or anything. I wasn't poor either. Like people think, oh, Nathan was poor. I wasn't poor. I don't have one of those stories. But I just wanted to be able to control my life. And I thought to myself, before I have kids, I want to be able to make sure I can look after myself. Because I see so many people that have kids and they can't even look after themselves. Why are they, bothering? So looking at, how I wanted to make sure I had enough cash flow coming through. I wanted to make sure I had assets. I didn't know when I first started investing how bad the world is messed up and all those sorts of things. And I'm actually going to make a video very shortly thanking all these bad, evil people for making this system exist. Because if it wasn't, people wouldn't be getting rich off property. People wouldn't be getting rich off cryptocurrencies, metals, investing, whatever. So it's important to just educate yourself and have the right knowledge around, protecting yourself, understanding the system that is there, questioning it. Like people follow with blind faith that, I've watched TV and what they're telling me on the TV is correct. It's all crap coming through that. So how can you research things? Like, I consider today, and I've gone way off topic of what I normally talk about, Steph. So it's I normally talk about how to build a property portfolio and all that sort of stuff. But with navigating through this system, like there's things that you can do to improve your life. I consider until you, like everyone that's watching, like how to build a cool property portfolio. But there's other areas, like whether it be the food that we eat, whether it be the chemicals that we consume, whether it be the way that we live our life and our health, the tablets that we take, or the lifestyle choices that we take. I can't give all that advice, right? What I can tell you is how the economy's screwed and what I see on that front, and how to try and best protect yourself. Like, I'm not a financial planner. I think I do a better job than many of them out there. I run a national financial sort of services sort of business. So I've got a law firm, accountancy practice, financial planning, a buyer's agency. I was probably one of the first 3 buyer's agencies in the country, and help people from all those perspectives. But I think being educated and understanding, okay, where am I today? Where do I want to be in the future? And what steps can I take to improve my life to get myself to there? Because more people are planning for their next holiday, which they're not really having at the moment, but they're planning their next holiday. They're planning their party on the weekend. They're planning what they're going to do when they get paid on Thursday night. Have you ever wondered, why does the shops open late on a Thursday night? Why not on a Friday night or a Saturday night? Because on the weekend, you probably have more time. It's because the Thursday nights when people get paid, they're going to go spend their cash, right? People are planning more for those cheap thrills and stuff like that in life than what they are for their own financial future, for their own health, whatever it may be. So trying to work out and ascertain where you are currently in your life and where it is that you want to go to, and working out what options you've got and the best plan of attack in order to get you there is really, really crucial, I believe. So, everybody I'm assuming is watching this is coming from a different perspective, a different home, a different lifestyle. So it's important to work out, where am I today? Am I making the right actions, the right choices? I could say I want to be healthy and fit and all that, and going to Macca's and smoking and drinking every day. My actions aren't going to help me live the life that I want. So from a financial perspective, is your spending habits right? Do you have the right, options? Are you self-sabotaging yourself? And looking deep, like, I think that's really important to start off with, by sort of formulate a plan and then work backwards and go, okay, if I want to replace an income, just a quick example on how to replace income in property and whatnot. If I've got 50 grand a year income. How can I replace that 50 grand? Break it down. It's $1,000 a week. So you need to try and find $1,000 a week. $1,000 a week, if the average rent's $300 a week, you need sort of 3 to 4 properties to return $300 a week to replace the income. That's paid outright. So you might need 8 of them. They double, you sell off half, you pay out the other half. There's lots of strategies, but without working where you are and where it is you're heading to, it's pretty hard to, determine. So, but research and education is really important.
Amazing. And it's listening to you talk, a lot of people kind of sit there and talk about their philosophy, and what people should do, but you actually walk your talk. You are a walking example of what you're sharing with others and how you're trying to help others. So I'm just interested to kind of maybe ask a personal question of, you speaking your truth. A lot of what you say makes total sense and so much sense, but a lot of what you say might be new to people when they hear what you're sharing. So how has that experience been for you, kind of speaking your truth, even though it is outside of what maybe the mainstream media would suggest?
That's a good one, because recently I saw a video of myself and I was like skinnier and I was like no grey and I had pimple face and I was sweating. I was wearing a suit and cufflinks and a tie. And I thought, my first video that I did for the website when I built the business Binvested like 12 years ago now, I thought that's what you got to do, right? So I did this video and then I put it onto YouTube. There was no YouTube out there. It was just starting out. And it was funny because people liked it. But then I started making videos with like a tradie jacket on, or it'd be covered in paint or something, doing a renovation. And people were like, I like the fact that you're just authentic. So naturally, it just became a natural progression to be myself. I found it better to be myself than not. But I think what's most important is I just don't care. Like I'd be respectful. Right? There's lots of things that I could talk about that I think I do cover. People say you shouldn't talk about religion or politics or anything like that. I like all religions, right? I'm not one or the other. I'm not I don't go to church. I don't go to a mosque. I don't, but I actually do go to some of these places because I do have belief systems in it. And I look at it, I'll talk about anything, but I'm respectful of what it is. I don't care. When I say I don't care about if someone's going to like me or not. I used to really care about that. I just think I have better connections with people if I just say what I feel, and you can gravitate people around you that are going to be more in line with your energy and your vibrations at that time. So yeah, for me, I actually made a post that was very controversial in the Birch feed the other day. And it was an exciting post. It's like, yeah, and there's something bad happened, which people would have watched the news and been like really sad that an incident, someone had passed and whatever. And I said, it's why people are going to now come out and idolize and put people on statues, which rulers, like they're our oppressors. They're trying to keep us down and control us and whatnot. Like I'm just questioning. No one questions these guys for what bad things have they done, what hurt have they caused, what bad crimes that they committed. They're just praising them because TV tells them blind faith to go and praise them. And I noticed that maybe 5 people pulled out of this group after I made this post. And I was watching it because I was concerned about it. I was like, imagine how many people, is it going to be 5, 10, 150, whatever. And 5 people pulled out over like 24 hours. It's like, they may not have hacked anything in here, but the other thousands of people that are in there are like, yeah, wow, Nathan actually said that. So I'd rather have better relationships with people. I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it because I need to do it for money. It's like I'm buying motels. I was saying beforehand to you, like I'm buying motels cash. I don't need to do anything. I've got people coming in the motels and things like that. I just have fun with it. And I think that's where people get caught up in the world, is they get trapped into the matrix. And the matrix is more of a documentary than a sci-fi than anything. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it. It's just so effortless to live when you're just kind of being yourself. You don't have to you know, it takes less energy, doesn't it? And as you said, you attract the right people that, you know, you connect more with anyway. Yeah. So what's my next question? So your mindset is obviously, you know, millionaire mindset, mindset for success.
Yeah.
So you don't get to be as successful as you have by, you know, negative thought patterns and beliefs. And so, and one thing that strikes me is kind of your appetite for risk. Obviously, you're someone who just goes for it. So can you talk a little bit about that sort of thing? What would you say would be the mindset for success?
It's good that you mentioned that, because there's a couple of elements to it that I think that I could break it down to. So one part is the mindset, and the second part is like the element of risk. When it comes to the mindset, like I feel when I start talking about the weird stuff of the world that we live in, sometimes like people think I'm like some crazy guy that's like negative and tinfoil hat. I'm just saying it as it is, because I see it very differently. I'm seeing it from a different vantage point. But I do see people that have like just wasted their lives. Doesn't matter if they're like, if it's a financial point, that's one aspect. But like whether it be their career, they could be a sports person, they could be whatever, but they have like self-limiting beliefs, they have negative people around them. In my life, throughout my life, I've experienced lots of negative people that have come through it. At some points, I've bought into it, and I realize I'm buying their story. There's the saying that you've seen on probably heaps of memes out there that says that if your 5 best mates are broke, you're going to be the 6th one. The actions of what you take. I didn't become successful. Like people say to me, Nathan, why aren't you on a boat with, you know, half naked girls on it and fishing and loud music and cool cars and drugs and partying all day? I didn't become successful in the back of a club getting bottle service. I became successful from the actions that I put in and the habits that I put in. And I think sometimes like people get caught up in either negativity inside themselves or outside themselves and their friends and family in those circles. And you need to look at sort of like the actions that you're taking in your life and go, okay, are these actions going to get me closer to where I want to be or further away from where I want to be? And then, you know, make a decision as to whether we go down that road or not. And I see so many people that just, they want to do something, or they're gonna do this, or they're gonna do that, but they're not gonna do shit because they don't take action, whether it's from internal or external sources, or they're just not committed to do the work of what it takes. So, yeah, I think in my life I've like sacrificed lots of things, whether it be relationships, whether it be friendships, whether it be just time, energy, and effort. But I'm having clarity. Like I feel that the world stands aside for the person who knows where they're going, and you can have clarity and direction. It's like if I know that I'm going to take this step, people get caught up in cheap thrills in life every day. It's like if I take this step over here, it'll be fun, right? But it's going to take me away from where I'm heading to over here. So having clarity with direction, with goals, with visions. I say sometimes, and it sounds bad, like treat your life like a business, like a successful, you know, budget in your home should be treated like a business. The emotion, cool. If the kids are, you know, wanting to do something, you can say, yeah, cool, I'll do whatever the kids have to say. But, you know, are you controlling that family budget and whatnot? So it doesn't matter whether it's in your personal life or whatnot, like have processes, have, you know, clarity with where you're heading. I think it's very important. As for risk appetite, I've gotten myself to a point, I guess, in life where I just don't care. Like I know my boundaries. I've pushed myself. I've had stress. I've had heaps of stress on a day-to-day basis. I've got like 100+ staff, a dozen different brands, like motels, like staff that are in the legal field, in financial services, some that are very need a lot more. I feel like some businesses I'm like an adult daycare center and I'm babysitting people. And I just look at it and I was like, okay, cool. Like things go wrong, right? But you need to minimize that risk, right? People are fearful of risk and go, oh, that sounds too risky. People never question that if you were 20, let's say you're 17, 18 years old, you're going to quit school and go get a uni degree of 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And there's nothing wrong with uni. I'm not trying to talk bad about it or that. I do find it interesting that you get caught up into a couple of $100,000 worth of debt in courses before you earn a cent in income, and that's perfectly fine, but you can't get a debt for anything else. But people then go on to work for 40 years in their life, in their best years of their life, to work in a job that they're trapped into, and then they retire and then they die or whatever. So for me, risk is going to do something you hate and not living your life's purpose. When you've got purpose and clarity, you can gravitate around that. And, sure, some things are risky in life that I do. Sure, there's been really stressful times out there, but it's managing that risk and trying to remove all the risky elements to it. And that's where, like, for example, like we talk about property investing, like people go, oh, it'd be scared to get $1 million loan and get $1 million worth of debt. I understand that $1 million worth of debt is a lot of debt to have to repay back. But if I could buy, say, 5 or 6 properties at 200 or 150K worth of property, then that risk is minimized. It would cost me less. It would cost me less to buy that property than it would cost to build the property. There's cash flow coming through. We're diversified, so if something goes wrong, we can sell down half that portfolio than just having that one house or whatever that could be in a bubble or whatever at the time. So I'm always trying to be able to remove risk. Doesn't matter if it's in business, personal life, investing. There is elements of risk, but sitting there doing nothing, life is quick. And I've experienced, just in the years of doing things, it's like these years are creeping up on us. So enjoy it. Don't let the risk or the sort of stress or whatever get on top of you control like your life, having personal liberty and freedom. I used to have the slogan, which is live life on your terms, but I'll also say underneath that, I don't put it as the website of that, but like personal liberty and freedom. Like people don't have access to that. Like I ask my mates, let's go out and do something. I can't. I've got to work tomorrow. I've got to be up early for a meeting. And it's like, let's go for a drive for 3 days. That sounds more fun, right? And that's a risk. So yeah, it's just minimizing the risk.
What I'm hearing and what you're saying is you've been true to yourself as well. You've kind of kept asking questions that don't make sense to you and just taken actions in alignment with what's true to you, regardless of what you feel like you should be doing or society necessarily kind of names as successful, which is and ultimately towards freedom, that I totally can relate to that, because we have to be free as humans. Like we have to live with that freedom, and that's the dream, isn't it? And when I was listening to a podcast you did called The Mindset of a Winner, I heard you say something that kind of stuck with me, and it was that you'd asked for advice in your phases of building your business, and you said you got a lot of advice, but sometimes they didn't understand your goal. So the advice you really had to weigh up with your own gut feeling, with your own is that valid to kind of take that advice. So I'd love you just to speak to that a little bit, because I really related to that too, because when I started out I felt like everyone else knew a lot more than me, so I was taking advice from left, right and centre, and I felt the same. I felt like, but no one's actually been to Nepal and met these women or understands the environment or the passion or the desire. So yeah, I'd love to hear.
Looking at in life and business, I remember once, like I was probably like 20, and I had an issue, like it was like a leaking water pipe or something in a house. And my girlfriend at the time, her mum had said to me that, why don't I sell off all my properties? I had 3 at the time, or 4. And she goes, why don't you sell off these crappy properties and go and buy 1 unit in this beach town? There was a studio unit. She goes, why don't you go do that? And I was like, because why would I want to go do that? There's just instantly what I was thinking. I'm like, why is she telling me this? And I was like, I respect her. She's a nice person, all that sort of stuff. But then it occurred to me, like, what is she basing it on? It's based on her emotion, thinking that I could have a nice seaside property or 3 properties in a bit of a rougher Western Sydney sort of area. reality, if we were to check back in, those properties are worth probably like 700 each now. So 3 times that is 2.1. The unit probably gone up to like 300 to like 600, maybe 500 if you're lucky. I based it based on like logical numbers. Hers was based on emotion. And it occurred to me that her opinion didn't mean shit to that decision. And throughout business, I've had, I got myself in a position maybe 5 years ago where where I tried to settle $10 million worth of property, right? And it was at a point when they tried that quantitative tightening. So that's what I saw was happening when they were taking liquidity out of the system. And I knew that they either had to put liquidity back in the system, which would be bigger, or they would crash the system. And it's obvious what they do is they just pump it up some more. And I had some mates around me at the time and say, why don't you sell off your properties and pay down your debt? And I was thinking at the time, it was a little bit stressful. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, I can push through this, but I wanted to build out this next $10 million worth of property because it's going to help me in my 40s. Like I'm 35 now, turning 36 shortly. But in my 40s, I'm going to become a developer. So I need to stack these specific properties for the future. Now, looking back, I still own all these properties. I've got maybe like 200,000 square meters of land in northwestern Sydney, development potential land. I do maybe like 500 houses. I own the land. I owe like $1 million on each one. So it's not that much. And I thought to myself, like, why are these people giving me this advice? And then I was like sitting there going, okay, this person that's saying this, these few people, don't have any asset. So they don't have credibility to tell me that they have a better way than what I have. Then I was sitting there looking at the position. I thought to myself, at the point, like I may have owed about $20 million worth of debt. I think I owe about like $18 million if I'm lucky now of debt. When I say lucky, I wish I had more debt. But I thought at the time, like if I had sold off, say, $20 million of my portfolio, it's probably worth like $50 million at the time. That 50 mil, sell off 20, pay out the debt. I'd have 30 mil, but without any debt. But I have all this cash flow coming through in the millions to service that debt. So the debt isn't an issue to me. The issue is that I needed more debt, which I couldn't get to settle these properties. So I'd have 30 mil worth of property. If the market doubled, it would turn from 30 mil to 60 mil. And I was like, I want to get to 60 or 70 mil and turn that into like 120 to 140 mil when the market doubles. So these people couldn't give me direction. They might have been good in their relevant field, in professions or whatever, but their advice and opinion wasn't right. In business, I've had lots of challenges over the years in business. Like I'm managing so many businesses that I've started from scratch. I own them all. I don't have, investors, and I don't have all that sort of stuff. All the businesses that I've set up have all been from scratch. And managing staff and all that. That's why I'm covered in grey hair today. Lots of things to learn. But people have given me advice, and I'm like, your advice sounds good emotionally, but you have I have no confidence in what's coming out of your mouth. Like, please just stop talking. I'm getting uncomfortable with you pressuring me with this stuff. So I've got this very simple sort of principle that, like, I'm blessed with hundreds of staff that I've got some very talented people that work for me and are part of the organization that are smarter in their relevant field. So I was talking about this to someone today. I've got an in-house counsel, like an in-house corporate counsel in my business, which protects me, makes sure that I'm, doing everything that's compliant. There's so many moving parts, whether it be from real estate, from finance, whether it be from motels, OH&S, HR, whatever. And I know that I'm very compliant. If it wasn't, I'd just be like, I should be right, whatever. I need to have the right team around me. And I was talking to someone, I'm like, that's great. My lawyer will look at it from two eyeballs, from their vantage point, from compliance, but may not be looking at it from a commercial perspective. You might have a salesperson that's looking at something from a perspective of a sale, but they're not looking at it from a finance perspective. So there's very different people, but people could be an expert in their field. So when you want the advice, make sure that you've got people that are very skilled, that have got the knowledge that, I used to, when I first started business, probably the biggest thing was that I was too nice to people. and I've got this habit where I'll be either too nice or I'll be just like ruthless. So I'll be like, no, right? Like, it's just like, I've had it, right? I'm just like so cold, so blunt, so whatever. And when I was first started business, I was like, this person's a good person. Let's put them over here to do this job. And I used to have like just crappy results and stuff like that until it occurred to me. And it was only up until maybe like 3 to 4 years ago, I was like, I don't want anybody to do anything. I want the best person that I can find, and they have to be in front of me to do that job. So if you want to get the best result from an accountancy perspective, you must have the best accountant. If you want the best legal representation, have the best legal. So, and take their advice for what you're asking for, because they don't see it from every perspective. Otherwise, they'd be doing what it is that you are trying to do. You look at, if you take an action, that there's a reaction to that action. So how is that going to, if you take that person's advice, whatever, how's it going to have a positive or negative reaction on other areas? So I think it's important to have the right team around you and to, protect yourself, but be open. Like, if you're trying to build something, be mindful, question, like, has this person done what I'm trying to achieve? Are they in a position of where I'm trying to get to? And how is this going to help me, negative or positive? So,
yeah, it's so obvious, that you're, as you mentioned before, living your purpose, because your energy and your life force is very kind of evident, and you're obviously kind of living your potential. And I'm really curious and interested to know, how would you describe yourself as a leader of someone who's, got hundreds of, over 100 people working for you? How do you encourage your staff members to reach their potential and kind of continue to grow in their own lives?
I think that's like probably one of the biggest challenges of my professional career would have been understanding staff and their emotions and their lives and all that sort of stuff. Because I look out here, because I've got like about 50, like, there's no one here in the office now, but always watching people come past that. So I'm like, staff out there. But with it, people come from different backgrounds. So like managing expectations, their emotions, what they're trying to do is hands up, it's not my strongest point. So I've been blessed by having, and I've only realized this the last sort of 3-4 years probably, that I need to have great levels of management and delegation and systems and processes. I've always treated my investing like a business, but I always treated my business like a hobby. And it was only until I got really strict and stringent on my processes, procedures, and all that was very important. So I've got very clear layers of management now, and clarity with the people. I don't need to go and be friendly to everybody. I'm respectful to everybody, but I don't need to go and be matey, because that's where emotion gets involved. But I need to, be available. I need to listen. I need to be courteous. Like, if there's a problem, a manager may even block that problem from coming to me. So I need to have my finger on the pulse for every area of the business. If I leave something, it's okay, it's beneath me to go and do that job, or it's beneath me to go and hang out in that business. So some of the businesses are very, labor intensive and stuff like that. Like, I still need to be active in that, because I need to see from the most entry person in the business all the way up, if there's an issue there, someone throughout that chain of command may not even acknowledge that issue and think, this person's a winter or whatever. So quality assurance throughout that, but really having great people. Like, I was talking to my mate about this at lunch today, that I could sit here and say how great I am and all this sort of stuff. I think that's where people get failed, because like, they'll build a business or an organization, and then they'll get to a level of what they see as success, but then they'll start becoming a consumer rather than a producer, right? And they might go and get a cool car and a cool house and change their lifestyle, but they'll stop doing what it was that got them successful. So it's like, for me, it's like, how can I keep refining what I'm doing? Like, I've got a goal to be a billionaire by the age of 40. I actually just changed it the other day. It was yesterday, actually. I've got a new goal that's in the middle there, and I want to make $1 million a month passive income in the next 5 years. And I believe that I can do that in 2.5 if I push myself really hard. And I'm not talking about business. I'm just talking about asset-wise and my assets. But from a business perspective, I can do that comfortably. But it requires a lot of time, effort, and energy and whatnot. But having the layers of staffing and the right teams, the right infrastructure, I'm not like, I've got a skill set which is big vision. I want to create cool things, and so I need to respect my role in the organization and go, this is what I'm good at. I'll focus on this. This is what I'm not good at. Let's find the best people that are around to be able to do that and identify them. And yeah, I've got actually just got the text before we came onto the podcast for one of my staff. Like, I've just helped one of my newer staff get their first property, which is really cool. This is a migrant. It's been in the country for a little while, and things haven't been that well coming into a new country. And it was an English-speaking country, so some of the barriers of people are migrants from everywhere, right? And they're coming through to our country, and everybody's got different challenges. This person just bought their first property, and I wanted to make sure this person got a property, because then they would understand on the other side how the client feels and all that sort of stuff. So whether it be someone that's fairly new to the country as a migrant getting their first property, whether it be my first customer service staff member ever, it was probably like my 5th staff member, who's now my general manager. She's got 20 properties. So when I met her and her husband, just an average family, they had one property, they worked hard, Asian background. Her mindset when she came to me was like, debt's bad. I know I need to get debt, but I've paid off my place cash. And they bought a second house. They only had 2 houses, very modest, under 6-figure income with 2 kids. And I got them to 10 properties in 6 months and to 20 properties in about 18 months. And I was talking to her recently about what's her goals in the next 5 years, and she wants to retire. And we're driving for like 10 hours to Queensland. And I was like, how are we going to retire? And she goes, you tell me. And I was like, well, we can sell this property off, do this, do this. And she's like, okay, that's what we're going to do. And basically, I've got a plan on how she could retire today with all her debt paid off and a new house in Noosa, where she wants to move to. And she could retire today. And for her, like, I know that she's not here for money. She doesn't come to the job for money. Like, it's not like I pay some stupid wage. It's not that, but it's the commitment, right? We've been through hell, right? Like, shit's happened in my life, in business, in her personal life, in her family, and we've always been there. And it's like understanding the key players in your team, supporting them, helping them being the best version of themselves. Doesn't matter if they're just starting out or if they're doing cool things. You want to give that respect to them. And some things in the business that are over the years that they may see as a key issue, where I've had to make an executive decision on, like, remove a specific person out of the business of that. It's like, okay, I need to do this because it's hurting this person with their job. I need to respect what they're doing. So yeah, probably one of the toughest things is just dealing with staff and people. There's so many of them. I wouldn't say it's my best skill set, but I've become much more refined and wiser, and processes and systems and procedures. For McDonald's, for example, to run a international company with people everywhere and the same hamburger from one country to another is all down to the system. So if you can think about your life and have systems, processes, procedures, risk management, all those things come into play to, yeah.
I love the way, Nath, how you kind of meet the person where they're at. Even your customers in business, you kind of start with, what are their personal goals for their life, and then you use your knowledge to support them to achieve that. It's not about, the cookie cutter approach that a lot of people out there are saying, to get this, you need to do this. You really kind of start with where the person's at. And I think that's great.
I think it's because a lot of people out there, they're trying to sell something in life, but they haven't done it themselves. So how can they give that sort of feedback and advice? And I guess as a business, there's certain elements that I need to keep my finger on the pulse, the quality assurance to make sure that things are happening. I can't employ someone to give advice on how to build a portfolio and retire if they're on 50 grand a year as a customer support or something. So yeah, looking at that advice, I need to be there. It's interesting because I've got one staff member. She's been with me for like maybe 6 years, like really, really nice person. and really crucial to business. And one day she said, it was very interesting because like her and maybe like 7 or 8 other staff that have been with me for like maybe 3 years, 4 years in the business. One was here for 8 years. They had a housewarming party. It was the first house they bought, and it was like it's actually Nepalese as well, right? And she's a migrant here, and they bought their first house. And I went around. They were making dumplings and having like a get together with their friends and stuff. And they were like, I took like an hour out of my night, right? And I got there at like 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Had some dumplings, best dumplings I'd ever had in my life. I need to get her to bring some in for me though. And afterwards, people were like, you still come on a Friday night to my house. So that's cool. I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, like you got a housewarming, let's go do it. So we're all people and we're all trying to do cool things, and you got to respect and support those people that are around you as well. I didn't even think of it as anything. I'm just going to a mate's house, So yeah.
So I've got one more practical question, and then I've got a final question for you. The practical one is, with all the companies that are under you and all those staff, and I imagine, just with what I know of you so far, you're a big picture, big vision person that would make quite quick decisions, and a lot of them, sometimes. So how do you kind of keep you mentioned systems and the structure and everything. How do you keep people with you on the journey so you don't come unstuck and someone go, oh my God, what's he done now? I had no idea about this kind of thing.
Once again, there's probably 2 questions there. Like one is how do I keep them long term? And it's interesting that you say like you can see that I have to make quick decisions. I look at it like from a dollar productive activity and from a holistic in line with, I think a lot of people look at IQ and think, the intellectual side of people. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the room, but I think that I can keep my emotion in check. Like if someone stabbed me and tried to get information out of me and tried to torture me, they'd have probably a hard time to do so because I would remain calm, right? And I've had lots of difficult situations, and I always try and find the positives out of the difficult situations, and always look at, like, if I had adversity, then I appreciate it because of what I've learned and how I've grown and how I've become resilient from that. So when I make decisions, I go, okay, is it just a basic decision that can unkink the hose? I've got a hose that's kinked and no water's coming out and we need to, water the garden or whatever. How can I unkink that quick? Is it just a yes or no? Do we need to order more cups? I don't even want to hear about it, right? Do we need more computers? Do we need more staff? I go, okay, hang on a second. I'll observe and go, okay, yes, we could unkink the hose with that. That's cool. But in very challenging decisions or just every day, like whether it comes down to the properties that I buy or the staffing decisions that I take or business decisions that I undo, I very carefully, I'm always sitting there watching. Like Linda, the lady I was talking about beforehand, that's my general manager, she always sits there and sits on the silent assassin, because like when I move, like it's like bang, like I make like a very fast move, but I've observed everything. Sometimes I'll make a decision. I play the long game. So the decision might be 4 years in the making. I see, observe, track, watch, analyze, see how it fits in and go, no, now is the right time to make that decision. So best way I could probably explain it is, let's say I've got this highlighter, and I don't encourage people to throw things out of the car window when they're driving, but let's assume I've got one of my mates walking down the street and I want to peg a highlighter out my window at his head and just hit him and go, hey, right, just for the fun of it, right? I need to analyze that I've got the highlighter, how much does this weigh? I've got my car speeding, how fast? If I throw it out too early, it's not going to hit him. Then I've got the wind velocity coming at me and all the scientific parts of it. How can I get this pen to hit him? And I need to sort of calculate that before I make the move. So when I observe everything that I do, when I take decisions, it's not that I've just gone out and made a quick decision. It's that I've calculated very carefully that I can get it, in the hole and make it happen, whatever it is. Let's say I'm trying to shoot it out into a hoop while I'm driving. So looking at a business decision, I don't make hasty decisions unless it is something like yes, no, but I try and outsource as much of it as I can. but having trust and loyalty. You can't train character, you can't train commitment, you can't train passion. You can train knowledge or skill set and stuff like that, but you can't train like a good, wholesome person. So it's important to have good people. If you have someone that's on your team that could be great at what they do, but they're not trustworthy, or they're not, a person of character, then that's a bigger issue than what you could ever imagine, because they'll chomp your arm off like a tiger at the festival. The other part, I forget the last part of the question. I said I was going to break it up into two parts.
That it was just, how do you bring people along with you, and remember to include everyone that's meant to be included in that?
Yeah, that was the EQ part, which is the emotional side of it. Like, people ask like on a regular basis, like, oh, what's Nathan like? Like, I've had like my good core people around me, and I don't want to do business with dickheads. Like, I've had lots of them come in and out of my life, and I know I'm very guarded nowadays as to who I can allow into my life, and what I should be watching out for in that, because I've wasted so much time, energy, effort, money, all those things, into bad people. And I often get asked like people say, oh, what's Nathan like? To like, I was pointing this way because my accountant's like just down the road, right? And my accountant Ridwan, he's a gentleman. And people ask him like, oh, what's Nathan like to work with? Is he arrogant? Is he cocky? And this guy's very spiritual. He's very devout in his religion, and he's like, Nathan's a good guy. Like, I've seen him through everything, and how he carries himself. Doesn't matter if I'm getting bloody crucified. I could have like 5 knives hanging out of my bag. I still won't come in and take it out on someone. I won't be, I will leave that for that conversation. It's not this person's fault because I've got a problem over here. This person on this side isn't the recipient of that. I need to help them. I need to come back and deal with the problem of whatever. So I think having, clarity and having like good, moral compass when dealing with people, and having, good people around you to start with. If you've got crap people, you're dragging yourself behind already. But having good people, having good clarity as to, and working with them, like supporting them with what they need to do their job. Like, like you want proactive people, you want people that are committed, you want people. So if you've got that, support them, let them grow, let them nurture. I don't come in, I don't micromanage anybody or anything. I leave everything to the, that's why I'm like hope it's all right, right? But hope isn't enough. Having people that I know that's going to protect me on that front. And as I said, like I've helped people, like when I've been on my lowest point, maybe don't have money for myself, but I've still been able to go, okay, I'm going to help this person, even if I have to fund them and give them like 20 grand or 50 grand. I've done that. And 9 times out of 10, I've got it back. And those people that didn't, then they've put a price and a value on our relationship, and it's their character. So I'm not too worried about that, because I know where I'm at. But I've helped people, and it doesn't matter whether it's from a financial position or whether it's from a personal situation, or I've gone, shit, I'm going to go above beyond because this person's good, right? I look at people in my life that have added value. Like if people have been around me and I can see that they're doing things that like really help me out of the clutch, I'll still remember that for in the future. It's like, okay, like it doesn't matter what happens, I still want to owe it back to them in some capacity. So I try and, provide and give and be as much as I can by giving back, because I'm only as good as those that are around me. If you can build that, equity, I guess, in people, like that, you can support them, they support you, whatever. Like it doesn't become a business. Like it's not. I've had staff that have come to me which are purely transactional, where I've treated our relationship better than a transaction. And it's like, well, that's fine. Like, I don't want you in my life if we're transactional. Like, cool, transactional is a part of it, but it's more than that. Like, if people coming into my life, it's more than just transaction. So, yeah.
Amazing. And yeah, the last question is basically, you mentioned that you kind of very logical, make decisions based on, sussing out the situation and over time. But you know, some of the most magical things in life that happen, you know, defy logic. So with all of the challenges and with all of your life experience, is there, you know, do you have this greater belief that everything happens for a purpose, or do you look back at your life and connect the dots and kind of go, oh my God, I'm being looked after, like that happened for that and that, and it's led to where you are today?
Yeah, I think so. Like, weird things have happened in my life, like good and bad. And like, I once believed that I was attacked by an energy that was like moving cups on the. I'd seen it literally with people. I was like, "How'd that happen?" I can't define what that means, right? But it was freaky, and it was like, you know, there is higher powers out there, good and bad, that we can't explain for. Um, so, like, sometimes I don't know what it is, but like sometimes I feel like, oh, there's something watching over me. There's something that's guiding me, right? But I think also, like, it's easy at times to slip back and go, you know, being sidetracked or as I said, like cheap thrills in life, like whether it be, you know, a drug or whether it be like a wild adventure or whatever. I don't see people that go on certain paths that are too wild that end up in a great position, right? So there are things there that you can't, you know, accommodate the answer for, but you know, there is a lot of moves that I've made, like being a motelier, right? There's not one thing that I ever wanted to do, thought I would be doing, um, but I'm doing it at the moment. But the reason why is that I was like, okay, I can go buy these properties that are very well priced. The infrastructure that I'm getting on the land, like the building and stuff, I couldn't even build it. It costs like 10% of what I'm paying for this whole thing for the infrastructure. Okay, I may as well do that deal. Then I'm like, shit, I don't want to go and buy one or two motels because it's not my thing. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go buy like 50 of them, 100 of them. So my new goal is to have 20 motel acquisitions per year, the freehold going concern, and then build a motel group around that. And for me, I think that's like a ballsy move. Like, I'm like, what am I doing? Right? I don't know anything about hospitality, but I do have other goals that are like, I want to have health food, right? You know, I think that what we eat is getting worse and worse. And one of the things that I think is that we should have, you know, people should be educated on what they're putting in their body and what they're eating and whatnot. And like, well, imagine if I have 100 motels and I have 100 restaurants in those motels, and then they've all got Uber Eats and all those sort of things out of there. So I'm creating a purpose that's greater, and I'm at a point where I can have a bit of fun. The worst case that I'm going to get done is that I'm going to screw myself up. I'm going to have a motel that doesn't operate correctly. I've still got that property with the land value, which is cheaper than a house or whatever in the area. And then I've got all these rental incomes. I can offload it. It's got, you know, risk minimization. So I think it ties back to having that clarity. Like, I see people that are just like YOLO and they'll make a decision that's like ballsy, but they don't think too much about the end result. I think if you've planned it like so far in advance and you've got knowledge, it's like, I've been looking for this thing. Now it's come to me. Now it's going to fit in here and we can keep moving. So I think an element of our lives, people think we're human beings. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, I believe. So we're interacting where, you know, there's stuff that we can't answer, we won't have the answer for. But some of the things we don't have the exact answer. But as much as we can have clarity around it, if we can have guidance, it's just like a roadmap. If we're traveling somewhere and we've got clear clarity, we're going to get there a lot quicker, a lot easier, a lot better than just, you know, winging it and whatnot. So, yeah.
I love that. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience. Love it. And I have absolutely no doubt that you'll achieve all your goals and more. And final, very brief question, apart from having a ton of gold at the end of your life, what would you ultimately love to kind of leave on this planet and be known for?
Yeah, it's a good one, that one. There's a ton of gold, like, it's not really that great. It's cool, like, to just, you know, collect it for the fun of it. I think more of a legacy, like being able to, like, I want to have like children that can, you know, be more awake and alert and be able to leave something that have created a path, which I don't know clarity as to exactly what that is yet. Like 35, I know I've done a lot of things in my life, but I think the best days lie ahead, and I don't know exactly what they are. but being able to leave a legacy, like, and have, you know, the biggest thing I got from 2020 was people woke the fuck up, right? People are questioning the world that they lived in, the lie that they've been sold. And that's what I think is really cool. There's people going, I don't want no vaccine inside me. People that are sitting there saying, I don't want to believe in the government. People that are questioning things. And, you know, as a human, we're all sort of trapped in this programmed world, which is that, you know, we just believe with blind faith what's coming through the TV and all that sort of stuff. And I think last year, like, for whatever things that are put out in the universe that were crazy and weird, and people were like, Nathan, get off the drugs, right? Like, if you go back to YouTube videos, like literally stuff we've talked about today that wouldn't have sounded crazy as some of the things that we've talked about from 5 years ago, 4 years ago. People were like, lay off the drugs, Nathan, whatever. I've never touched drugs. If I did, imagine how crazy I'd be, right? But now the things that I've said sound very mainstream. They don't sound weird at all. So we're living in this world which people are waking up. If we can, you know, I don't hate the system we're living in. I don't hate the matrix. I like the fact we're in a country with no guns that aren't fearing getting shot every time I go to the shops. But, you know, understanding that there is a matrix around us, understanding that you can be better than the system is designing us to be, and all that, I think that that is really cool. And if I can, you know, build a legacy around that, my values of life is like people like living life in their own terms, like doing what you want to be. You want to be the biggest ballerina in the world, go be the biggest ballerina. You want to be, you know, a movie star or a sports star or do whatever, just be the best of whatever you want to be, right? Like, it doesn't matter whatever it is. So I think awakening people and helping people live a better life is one of my core purposes. But yeah, I think taking back the control as well, like from the system that we're trapped into. I often think when I have children, those kids will be living a very different life than what I lived, in a different era, different time. And also, you know, I don't want to have children that are born in the world that are going to be spoiled brats and all that sort of stuff. I'm already thinking about, like, when I have children, how they're going to behave and, you know, how I want them to grow up. Because there's this proverb from some Asian proverb, and it's called from rice fields to rice fields. And they say you might have like a parent which is very hard working in the rice field, worked really hard, established something for themselves. The next generation took that to the next level, became very, very successful. But then the generation afterwards screwed it all up. They became Justin Bieber's and Britney Spears, and then they just like wasted it all. And they're back working in the rice fields. And you know, I think, yeah, a legacy of intergenerational, like whether it be just wealth, but knowledge as well, and communities and business. Like, it's not, for me, it's not about money or reality currency. It's about, you know, being able to build something that's bigger than me. It's a bigger purpose. And I think and hope that in the next sort of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, that, you know, those that are around me can like grow and build that, like whether it be my team, my staff, you know, my family, all that sort of stuff, that can grow that. So as for when I die, I haven't really thought exactly about it. I'd like to have a funeral that would have lots of people there, a lot of people that are upset. Hopefully a lot of people that go like, look, Nathan lived too long, we're all, you know, cry. We shouldn't cry because he's 100 years old and like he's an old bastard, so should be happy he had that time. But be able to live something that outlives me, because people are just thinking, as I said, those cheap thrills and what's going to happen tomorrow, or how can they get a little buzz or dopamine or whatever's in their system from buying something or doing something. But you know, further generations, that's really what I'm looking at. So I've already done enough in my life to, I don't need to buy another house or another, like, I can just be happy. But I guess I'm happy, I'm excited, but it's still never enough. It's still just trying to get to that next level. As I said before, there's the new levels, new devils, and it's like there's always something there that's trying to hold us back. And if you can treat life like a game, that's what it really is. Like, everybody's searching for something. I'm just playing. It's like I'm having fun on the journey. And, you know, that's what's really cool. So.
I love that. And, you know, for what it's worth, as an onlooker and as someone who's followed you in your journey, and Facebook every Tuesday night you're doing your Facebook lives and sharing your knowledge, to me it's kind of like Gandhi's quote, be the change. You are an example of the change that you wish to see in the world, and you're sharing all the knowledge that you have, and all the research that you've done, and you are kind of living the life of freedom, and you're shining light on the path to freedom for others. So I think you're even just in your Facebook lives and what you're doing, you're being the change. And I'm sure so many, as you said, even with your Birch Feed channel on Telegram, so many people are on that and taking inspiration from what you're putting out there, and you're causing people to kind of question things that maybe aren't aligning for people in their own lives, and to seek that freedom. So I really admire who you are and what you do, and at the stand that you make for others. And thanks so much for giving your time to be on this podcast. I'm sure you've inspired many people, and thanks for sharing all your pearls of wisdom.
Thanks, Steph. I appreciate that. And unfortunately, in life and business, there's no one there that really sits there. There's no award that I'll get as like, oh, you've got a gold star, Nathan. You're doing a great job out there. So it's humbling to have that feedback, and appreciate that you're benefiting and growing, and enjoy what I put out, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you having me on today on your podcast and the community.